Welcome to the podcast. Today I have the privilege of welcoming three beautiful postpartum doulas, and they are going to share with us their wisdom and their knowledge and the special offerings that they individually have around postpartum care. As postpartum doulas, we understand the importance and value of care and education, but we also know that postpartum is a very personal and intimate experience, and that a woman needs to feel safe and comfortable with those that she welcomes into her postpartum space. So I thought it would be helpful to interview a range of approaches to help women at this unique and special time when they are thinking about postpartum care, or they might be thinking of hiring a postpartum doula, that they will have more insight in knowing what their needs are and the sorts of things that they can ask when finding the right fit. Welcome to the podcast, ladies. We have Olivia, Ysaline and Damaris. We're going to dive right in and we're going to start with Olivia. Welcome.
Thank you.
Postpartum is forever.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katora, for having me on.
Welcome. So I'd like to sort of ask, first of all, where you're based and how you became a postpartum doula.
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in Parramatta, but I do service Sydney. And pretty much my journey into the postpartum was through my own postpartum experience. So I had my first baby and I knew nothing about postpartum. I prepared, for the pregnancy and for the birth of my child, but I didn't have much preparation in the postpartum space. And I felt very depleted and very, lonely in that time. So when I had my second child, I decided that I'm going to look more into it and research more into it. But there's not a lot of common mainstream knowledge around postpartum. So I started to delve into, traditional postpartum care, and I found quite a bit of information there. So that's how I looked after myself in the second postpartum time. And when I birthed my second child, it just came to me that I really wanted to work with women in this space. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to look, but I really was interested in working with women. And then I, delved with different ideas. I went down the midwifery route because I was already a registered nurse. So I thought perhaps midwifery, and then I didn't really want to work in the hospital system. And then I found out about doulas, which I hadn't known about previously. And then I found out that it's not just birth doulas, but there's also postpartum doulas, which I thought fit me perfectly. And then that's where my journey began, and that's how I started.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's such a common story, isn't it, that these things are often born out of our own experiences and what the sorts of things that we want to change in our experience, we want to be able to provide for other women.
Yes.
Out there. Yeah, so thanks for sharing. So why do you believe that postpartum care is not just valuable but necessary as well?
I mean, like I was saying, it's not mainstream knowledge to know about postpartum support, and I really believe that it should be. We have a lot of, coming from that registered nurse background, we have the knowledge that if someone goes into hospital, for example, for a procedure or to get something done, we understand as a collective that that person needs time to recover. They need time off work to rest and all those things. Whereas we don't treat the postpartum time the same, which I'm not saying it's a hospital situation, but what I'm saying is postpartum is a time of vulnerability, and it needs to be, sacred and looked after in the same ways where we're respected to have that time off, where, people come and gather and they know that the mother needs to be looked after and taken care of with, nutrition and be resting and having that bond with baby, that's a very important time. So it is, it's not a luxury to have this. It's actually very necessary for the mother's own health and vitality and, not to become depleted during that time. She really needs that care. So that's why I think it's such a necessary thing, and it needs to become more mainstream, more well known. I'm hoping as the years go on, there's more education and we're kind of becoming more aware, but it's still not quite there yet. We're still very much told you need to bounce back, you need to get back into, the community and everything. But in actual fact, that's not how it should be, especially in that really immediate, postpartum time.
Yeah. Yeah, and bounce back just does not fit with healing and recovery.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So the message is really it takes time.
Yeah.
So this is what I love about interviewing and spending time with different doulas, is because we all have different approaches and different styles and things that we offer. So what is your kind of personal approach to postpartum care?
Yeah, so like I said, with my journey into becoming a postpartum doula, I took that traditional approach. I do also have a background as a holistic health coach, which is where I was first exposed to different traditional cultures around the world and there's certain protocols. And the one that I really gravitated towards was Ayurvedic postpartum care and support. And I myself, I do really like the principles of Ayurveda. So that is where I lent into. So as soon as I decided to become a postpartum doula, I pretty much decided to take that Ayurvedic route into postpartum care, so taking that traditional approach. Unfortunately, in our Western culture, we don't have anything, we don't have any specific protocols or anything to go by. It is literally you have a baby and you get back into the world. So I really wanted to tap into those traditional cultures, traditional wisdoms that have a sense of, how to bring the mother back into her health and vitality.
Yeah. Okay. So for maybe a mother out there that's thinking, I've heard of Ayurvedic, not actually sure what it means, and especially so in postpartum, how would you explain it in simple terms, how that could be experienced in a postpartum?
Yeah, sure. So Ayurveda essentially it originates from India. That's where it comes from. It's a wisdom which has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And essentially it is always about bringing the individual person back into balance. And they use a lot of the natural concepts, like earth, wind, fire, to kind of understand each person on an individual level. And then from there, you're able to, really curate something to be able to bring them back into balance and harmony and health. So that is kind of the concept of it, right? So in postpartum, there are 3 doshas in Ayurveda, which are a little bit more mainstream if you know much about Ayurveda. So the 3 doshas are Vata, which is like air, space, Pitta, which is your fire element, and Kapha, which is your earth. So when you can figure out which dosha is more dominant within yourself, then you're able to figure out, okay, I need to do these things to be able to bring myself back into harmony and balance. So in the postpartum time, essentially what happens is the Vata dosha, which is the air and space, is the dominant one. So if you can picture a mother who's just grown her baby, she's grown another organ, which is the placenta, and then she's given birth to it. There's like this space that now exists within her. So that's that Vata dominant, right? So we are doing everything in opposition to air. So if you can think about air is cold, it's crisp, it's dry. So in the postpartum time, we really focus on warmth and, nourishment and, like that coziness. And so we're really looking at, nutrition in terms of warming spices, warming food, warmth physically, so making sure your feet are warm, your womb is warm. We're looking at resting, ensuring rest, ways that we can bring oxytocin and happiness to the mother. And all those principles lead to a more happy and content mother, which is what we want. And in Ayurveda, there is this concept that the first 42 days after the birth of your baby, that determines the 42 years of your life. So whatever actions are taken during that time really determine the long-term health of that mother. So we do see in our Western society a lot of these mothers who give birth and they don't have any understanding or knowledge around that postpartum time to really look after themselves. They do become very depleted, and not just depleted in those early stages, but that depletion kind of carries through for many, many years to come. Whereas when you understand that you need to keep those 42 days very sacred, looking after yourself, being nourished and supported, then that health and vitality does pull through for all those years to come. Yeah.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it? When you think about it, practices have been around for a long time.
Yes.
We're just starting to catch on to them now.
Yeah.
In the Western world, but yeah, it just feels right for a mother to really be cocooned and have that warmth that she needs in those early days, and not sort of gallivanting around to cafes and
Yes, all the things. And I think the other important thing, because you mentioned cafe, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize in that postpartum time is when you give birth to a baby, not only are you weakened from the physical aspect, needing to recover, there's also the energetic aspect. So mothers are very impressionable in those first 42 days. So when I speak to mothers, a lot of them do have a little bit of a problem about the resting and being, in their home. They want to be getting up and they want to be going for walks and going to cafes. But the thing that a lot of these women don't realize is, of course, physically you may feel better after a week or so. For some people, it's totally possible. However, that energy is still very fragile, and you don't know who you're going to meet when you're, going to a cafe or you're going down the street. There may be people who are very well-meaning and want to say, nice things, but you don't know how you're going to take it on in that time. So that is also so important to note, that it's also your energy that is, very much cracked open, and which is why when we talk about visitors coming in, ensuring they're people who are really going to be nurturing and holding that space for you, because you're just so impressionable as a new mother.
Yeah, that's so true. Very wise. And I think if mothers can keep that little piece in the back of their mind that this has long-term effects,
yes,
and long-term impacts, so that even if they feel like they are okay, like you said, I could do it. Maybe they could just think, well, what about thinking of the future and how this is going to affect me long term. Yeah.
And I also do say to mothers that it's only 42 days. It's 6 weeks, compared to the rest of your life. I know it sounds long, but it's actually not. It will go by so quickly, and then you'll reemerge from that cocoon and you'll be looked after and held, and much stronger for it.
Yeah. I think we could pull a few things out of what you've said, but maybe you have something to add about what sort of tips you provide for mothers that are thinking about their postpartum care or thinking about having a doula.
Yeah, sure. So I guess tips in the postpartum time is the biggest ones that are taught in traditional cultures. There's really 4 main things that they can focus on. Nutrition being so important. The warmth aspect, bringing in warmth in everything, will really help a mother. So not just physically, like I said before, but also through food, through drinks, through even your friends and family that are coming to visit, making sure they're the warm personalities that you want around. The resting, so important to have that rest, and things that make you happy, that bring that love and peace and happiness, because the last thing you want is a super stressful postpartum. So setting yourself up in that way. In terms of looking for a doula, I think that the only way you're going to know is having a chat with a doula. So, if something resonates with you when you look at their website or their page, having a chat to them. I know that I offer like a 15 free minute, chat that we can have over the phone, because you can pick the energy straight away. Like you really can. I think that's the biggest thing. And you do want a doula who you connect with on that energetic level that you'll be comfortable with, because like I said before, it's a very vulnerable time and you want to pick someone you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so important. Thank you. There's a lot of gems there.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So maybe we'll move on to Ysaline. Thanks for coming. You might recognise Ysaline has been on the podcast before, so welcome back.
Thank you very much, Keturah, for having me back.
Yes. So tell us where you're based and how you became a postpartum doula.
So I'm based in the eastern suburb, and so I also, through my life experience, I became a postpartum doula. So 6 years ago, I was pregnant with my first child, and I had no idea of what was a doula. And then I became a mom, had my baby, and realized how important it is to have support in the postpartum. I was not prepared at all for postpartum. And then fast forward, when I was pregnant with my second kid, I also do a training to be a life coach. And during that training, I realized that I want to be with mothers, to be with women. And at the same time, without really realizing it, I was supporting friends who were pregnant. And then I caught myself, I'm actually being their doula without really knowing. So it was something coming from my heart as well. Yeah. And then I had my second kid and decided to move on to be a doula and really got more understanding and knowledge of the postpartum and how important is it, and to be really surrounded and have the right knowledge and information around that massive transition we go through as women.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's so, as I said before, it's something that we just tend to, we'll hear from Damaris, might have a different story, but generally it's sort of like, whoa, that is huge. Like, I didn't even know about birth doulas when I had my first son nearly 24 years ago, but I had 3 women at my birth in addition to my husband, and that just felt like, to me, that was just normal. I thought, doesn't it make sense that you'd want other women surrounding you? So I got that part right. But yes, most of us are like, but after the birth, that's really the main event. We'll be right, we'll be okay. But, even more important, I think, afterwards, to have the right people surrounding you. So what special, unique practices and offerings do you offer in your work?
So first of all, when I'm practicing my doula services, my approach is really to give a space for the woman, but also for the couple, to feel heard with their feelings, with their emotions, and really to have each session to be tailored to their needs, and not knowing what they're gonna want from me as well, and really to hold space for them and be there for them with emotions, and also if they have questions, things they've been through in the between sessions as well. And the special offering I always use at the end of my session is I'm using rebozo, really to give a relaxation moment to the mother as well at the end of each session. And the rebozo, it's a Mexican shawl that is like a kind of Mexican scarf that has been used from generation and generation by midwives. And it's really like an ancestral tool that they use over there. And it's often heard to use the rebozo during pregnancy as well, to release any tension during birth. And we also hear the rebozo known for the closing of the bone ceremony. And the way I use rebozo is a little bit also different. I also offer a massage, which is a 90-minute massage where really to honor the woman in a very slow way, from head to toe, where the woman have that time to be cocooned, to in a really slowness, depth, and for her to be with herself, which doesn't happen often when we become a mom, and to have that moment of connection. To really honor the transition she's going through, because as Olivia was sharing, in our Western society we often expect the mother to be back on her feet, and with the rebozo massage as well, it really support her in that journey, and to honor her and share any feelings she's going through as well.
And I have been a happy recipient recently of your rebozo massage, so I can really vouch for the feeling of just slowing down, getting out of your head, coming back into your body, and feeling nurtured and also connected with yourself and your feelings and how your body's feeling. And I really think these practices are like lifelong practices. They're good for any transition in life, and it's never too late. So if you haven't been able to have these practices and you feel like that's something you want to experience, it can be done at any time, which is good to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good point. It can really be done at any transition in life, and it's also a beautiful tool to connect with your partner at home, and to use it at home as well, to as a reminder to have as a little self-care as well.
I think you've both touched on the closing of the bones. Did we say much about that?
Not for me.
No.
Yeah. Are you able to share a little bit more about that, Ysaline, what that actually is, and what the intention is behind it?
So I don't practice a lot the closing the bone ceremony. Olivia, I know, is definitely the expert on that. But it's really to honor the woman after her birthing her baby as well, and really to close the body and respect different steps as well that are coming from Mexico, and it's really to close the body in 7 points. And maybe Olivia,
is there anything you want to add to
Yeah.
that?
a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So again, kind of similar to Ayurveda with the Mexican tradition, they also very much touch on the earthal, like the elements of the earth. And that's actually where the closing of the bones comes from. It touches on, so there's 4 stages to the closing of the bones. It's not just the wrapping with the rebozo at the end, which seems to be the mainstream common picture of closing of the bones, but it's actually a journey that we take the woman through. And like I said, it goes through each element. So the 4 stages, pretty much, the first one is like the massage. So you're loosening up the mother's body. And this is all to help, like I spoke about with the energetics, right? The mother is very vulnerable and open with her energy. So the closing of the bones is actually, first of all, to allow the mother to process the event of that pregnancy birth, but also to close that energetic field. So we want her to go through whatever emotions, the journey that she had, whether it was traumatic or not even traumatic, just to allow her to have that time to go through it. And then the actual closing at the end is like that energetic closing of that chapter. So then that mother's energy is cocooned and closed there, and then she can go out into the world, feeling confident, and, she's not as susceptible anymore. So that's actually the whole point. So like I said, the first step is the massage, loosening up the body. The second step is more of a very uncomfortable step. It is, like a sauna experience with hot water, and it's all herbal. And that's where the mother can release any traumas or anything that she's going through. The third step is more of like an inward reflection. So you cover the mother with heavy blankets, and they're in this heat and this darkness for a period of time where it's more inner reflection. And then the fourth stage is the traditional closing that you see on mainstream. So that's kind of the whole.
That's what we see on social media.
Yeah. And to be fair, like that's what I post on my Instagram too, because it's a photo that everybody understands. But it is actually a whole journey. It takes about 4 to 5 hours to like complete. And it's, a journey for the mother to go to. So it's kind of like the mother being reborn at the end. So having that kind of like a birth and being reborn out on the other side. Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of emotions attached to it. And a lot of reflection, as you've said. Okay, so why do you feel, Ysaline, that postpartum care is not just valuable but also necessary?
I think I see 2 main reasons, even though they are more, but I'm happy to share 2. So the mother is going through the biggest transition in her life, and also it has a massive impact on the whole family. It's not just for the mother, but the whole family. So if we dive a bit more in terms of the transformational transition the woman is going through, she's going through a biggest transition physically, emotionally, mentally, first through pregnancy, through birth, and then all of a sudden the woman is becoming a mother. And I think it applies whether it's your first kid, second kid, third kid. Each birth is unique, and I think it's the mother deserves so much love, so much care. We tend to focus a lot on the baby, but the baby has a love of his parents, both parents, and the mother often feels lonely, not knowing what to do, because it's a proper job to be a mother, to be parents, and as Olivia was mentioning as well, with the food, with the warmth, there is a lack of knowledge of how to look after a mother after she's born as a mother, and for me it's extremely necessary to have that care, and that's make me jump on the second aspect of looking after the mother so well at the beginning, and I would say on the long term as well, postpartum is forever, right? It has a massive impact on the family, on the partner as well, on the kids if there are any kids, on the long term. And I also talk about the partner because some of my sessions, the partner is also here, and I think it's also a very good support for them. First, to know that the partner is looked after, but I can also give them a space for them to share what they are feeling. They are going through also a transition, so it's really a necessity for the whole family, in my view.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm glad you brought up the partners and the fathers, because it is so true. Like, so many dads feel very detached and
Yes.
you know, want to be more useful, but they just feel like they don't necessarily have a role that's important, but they really do, don't they? And
Yes.
they've experienced a big transition themselves. So yeah, it really is like a flow-on effect for the whole family when women are supported.
Exactly, and I also really believe that having a postpartum doula is also very beneficial even before giving birth. We don't know what's going to happen in postpartum, but there are a few things as well that can be really discuss, communicate, and really understand the role of each other as well.
Absolutely.
Family and the extension of the family.
Yeah.
As you, Olivia was mentioning with the visit, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very hard when you're in the thick of it to then seek out the support, isn't it? When you sort of, you're in it, you can't even sort of think, who should you call, who should you turn to? You're quite desperate, you're quite vulnerable, your energetics are very low. So it's having that support already in place beforehand is, you know, really going to set you up for a much, whatever comes up, you know, you've got those lifelines to turn to.
Exactly, and really your doula, your postpartum doula can really help as well to think, to brainstorm, okay, who are my people during that time.
Yeah.
And I would even apply on the long term, sometimes when our kids are a bit older. We also need a support, a team, especially when we live also far away from family. I think it's a good habit to take from early on as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what tips would you say would come to your mind as being very important or very valuable for mums? So they're pregnant and maybe they're in their second trimester and they're starting to think about, or they've seen something on social media that's talking about postpartum care, and maybe they're thinking, is that something that I need?
Yeah, so a few things I can talk about in terms of tips. So first one is it's never too late to get a postpartum doula. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you already have your baby, and it's never too late to be looked after. We deserve help, and sometimes we could feel a support when our kids are a bit older. I'm thinking, for instance, when they are like 18 months too, where it's different trigger that's coming for us as well, where our baby is becoming toddler. But also in the first few, like it's never late to have support and to have care. And I think that's really important to raise that we can have that.
I'm happy to raise
it. To have that recover at a later stage as well, because postpartum lasts a long time and probably is forever. So that was one of my first points. The second tip, it's the partner as well. Again, I want to raise that again, because sometimes the partner might feel, you want to have a doula, but what about my own space? How can I contribute? But yes, having a doula also is really beneficial for the partner, and really like consider that decision to talk with your partner as well, and how you want your partner to be involved. Sometimes I know the women like to have a session also by herself with a doula, and also that to really communicate again with your partner. The other point, the third point I wanted to raise as well is to really have knowledge around postpartum. As Olivia was saying earlier, there is not enough knowledge. We get prepared for birth, pregnancy, which is amazing. But the next step is important, even more important, because it's the birth has happened, so let's get started. And we don't know how we're going to react to postpartum, but I do think it's important to be aware that it's a transition. We all go through it, however we are going through it, and it's important to have support and to honor that, okay, we need to slow down, we need to have that support as we were talking before. So really that knowledge. And the other aspect I wanted to mention is the kind of the financial investment. When you think of hiring a doula, yes, it's a cost, it's an investment. And I do believe it's a long-term investment that's really worth it. We do think when we're having a baby of cots, of baby rooms and stuff like that. And I think it's also important to put in the decision-making, okay, how about a doula and the effect it's going to have? Yeah, having a baby has a financial cost with a physical item, but also with an emotional item, as would be for having a doula. And I do think it's really important to think about that in the decision making.
Yeah, it is an investment, but it's like you've said. We live in a day and age where we have so many products and things and tangible things that we can buy, and it can be easy to get sucked into, I think, especially the first time around, isn't it, that we need it all, we need everything, but babies need very little. They need a mum and dad, or whoever is the primary caregiver, whoever's with them. They need them to be, looked after, supported, have, what they need. So services are really much more valuable and we are close to retail shops if we do need extra things. We're not in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nice too that I know I sort of set this up with my clients that they can save a couple of their appointments for later, because there's still a bit of a understanding out there that postpartum is 6 weeks.
Yes.
And that we need to get all the visits done within 2 months max, because that closes that part of their life, which might feel good for them if they sort of feel like it's end of a chapter in there. But really, we're not really at the end of our immediate postpartum at 6 weeks. Maybe on a physical level, but not necessarily on all the other levels. So, yeah. And, yeah, beyond, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, for me, it's something I really share as well with my community and my clients to, postpartum lasts. And sometimes for some of us, the beginning will be fine, and then the struggle can come after or not. We are all unique. Our experience is all unique. And as I was mentioning at the beginning, each birth is unique as well. And I think having if you can have a postpartum doula for each of your births, it's even better. Each experience will be different, and having help and support will have a massive impact for the well-being of the mum and then for the family.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure.
Damaris, let's move on to you. So Damaris, welcome to the
Thank you.
When did you become a postpartum doula, and where are you based?
Yeah, I'm based in the inner west in Sydney, so I service all of the inner city suburbs. And I think I became a postpartum doula around 3 or 4 years ago, about that time. I started out as a midwife back in Germany, taking care of mothers kind of on a very personal level as a private midwife from pregnancy, birth to postpartum, and really enjoyed that kind of one-on-one support and supporting women's health and well-being in that very special season. And then moved to Australia for love and maybe the sun as well a little bit, and just discovered this huge lack of care that mothers receive after they have their baby. And like I've seen so many of my friends and family like leaving the hospital and then just being on their own, and no one taking care of the mother and helping her on a physical and emotional level. And that's kind of what made me to start Mom's Oasis, becoming a postpartum doula,
try to do my part with the knowledge I have and the experience and passion about that, like women's well-being, especially in that phase, to really enhance the care that mothers receive, and to like hopefully together, like partnering with more postpartum doulas and other professionals in that area to hopefully make a difference and enhance it like on a broader levels for maybe the next generation, or hopefully sooner as well, but enhancing the care that mothers receive.
I think things are starting to shift, which is really nice to see. So
it's exciting.
By the time we have the next generation, they're going to be all over it.
Yeah.
So what special sources and offerings do you bring to your practice as a postpartum doula?
I think my heart is really to create that oasis, that postpartum oasis. Like we said before, postpartum is such a vulnerable, special time that you need at least those first 6 weeks to kind of create a little sanctuary to take care of yourself, to get to know your baby, to transition in that new season. There's so much that is happening on a physical level and an emotional level. So I try to create that postpartum oasis, like a very nurturing, supportive, loving environment for the mom to optimize her own recovery, physical recovery, her mental, emotional well-being, that connection with the baby, getting breastfeeding started. There's so much going on in the postpartum period, so it can be so overwhelming. So my heart is really to take that overwhelm out and to make it very easy for the new mother to transition in that new season.
Yeah, and I know you do that so beautifully and very gently and competently. It's funny when mothers say, but why do I need a postpartum doula? What can they do for you? You know? Because as you've said, there's so much going on. There's absolutely so much that can be done.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a special fondness for the hormone oxytocin as well. Can you share the role of oxytocin in postpartum and how you can make the most out of it?
Yeah, definitely. Oxytocin in general is the hormone of love and connection. So we all have oxytocin, but it's especially important for birth and then for the postpartum period as well. So in birth, that's maybe what a lot of more people know. It's really important to bring on contractions so that the baby is going to be born. But then it continues in the postpartum period. So that contracting of the uterus, for example, that still continues because the uterus needs to contract down to its size before pregnancy, and it needs to stop the bleeding, close the placenta wound. So oxytocin is really important for your physical recovery. It is very important for breastfeeding. It plays a huge role in the letdown reflex, so that your milk is going to flow. Also in the bonding with your baby, like it releases all the maternal instincts, and as I said, is the hormone of love and connection. So it helps you to build that connection to your baby, that really deep bond. But then it's also just so important for your emotional well-being because it makes you calm. It brings your stress down, your blood pressure, your cortisol levels. So it really helps you to be in that calm, relaxed state, which is so important for motherhood. But that also shows that, that oxytocin is just so important for the whole overall well-being, and really shows what is important in the postpartum period as well. And as like Olivia said, I think it's like postpartum is a period where you're so vulnerable and open. And that is one reason is because that hormone oxytocin is so high through all the breastfeeding and bonding and connection, which is amazing because we we want the mother to form that deep connection to her baby, and we can really use that to our advantage to like really snuggle her in all the love and support and warmth and connection. But on the other hand, it also means that the mom is so open for like to receive stress and anxiety, which can be very overwhelming. And we have that huge like hormonal shift after birth, which we know can lead to postpartum depression, baby blues, because those pregnancy hormones, they stop, and they bring a sense of well-being and like relaxed feeling, but that falls away, and that is supposed to made up for with oxytocin. So we really need to make sure that the mom is like is well, is supported and cared for. I always say the easiest to say it is to like keep the stress out and keep the calm in. So that's really how you can create that postpartum oasis and make sure that the mother is physically well, emotionally well, and the whole family as well.
I think we really underestimate just how powerful oxytocin is. It just is something that we kind of just say, oh, that's the thing we need for birth or when we're having an orgasm or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's for life. So there's so many ways in which it can elevate our life.
Yeah.
And I know that some mums worry a little bit about, say, they had their baby and they might have been, say, separated from the child.
Yeah.
They didn't get the golden hour, the golden
Yeah.
4 hours with the baby being able to find the breast. Things like that, or babies in NICU. What would you say to a mother that might feel like, I've missed out on that,
Yeah.
that early oxytocin? Can I get it back?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really good question. Yeah. And that's the good thing about oxytocin. I mean, the early time after birth is so important. So for anyone listening who has the chance to have that after birth, that immediate skin to skin contact with the baby, like that is so valuable. But on the other hand as well, if out of any reasons you couldn't have that, then it's not too late, because the good thing about oxytocin is that it fluctuates and we can easily create that. But even then it's so important to have especially that skin to skin with your baby, which is, I think, is the ultimate oxytocin booster really, for yourself and the baby, to have lots of skin to skin with your baby if that is possible. Oftentimes, even if the baby is in intensive care, it is possible. So to do that, but then also really to make sure you take care of yourself, which is hard in the postpartum period, and that's why we talk about support. So have someone who takes care of yourself, so that you feel loved and supported, and that you can keep the stress out, because that is really the ultimate oxytocin killer. So yeah, if you couldn't have had that like initial golden hour, if you separated from your baby, all the time that you can spend with your baby, have that skin to skin, and then really make sure for yourself that you are looked after and cared for.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yeah, and so important to share, because as mums we have enough to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
And I think the message that's coming through, it's never too late to do any of these practices.
Yeah.
We can always replicate the same thing, and it's not any less valuable. So anything that you'd like to share as something for mums to take away as to, top tips for postpartum, or if thinking about postpartum care?
Yeah, I think it's because postpartum care and support is still such a new thing as well. So sometimes it can seem like, I heard about it, but I'm not exactly sure, or I don't even really know what I need. So I think I just want to speak to that and say that that's totally okay. Like, you don't need to know exactly what you want from a postpartum doula or what you need in your postpartum. You can still reach out. Like I have so many inquiries of people just saying, hey, I want support postpartum. I don't really know how that's going to look like or what I'm going to need. And that's totally okay. Like, because we know on a broad and universal level what new mothers need in that period. Yeah. And we are going to sit down with everyone one-on-one and kind of discuss how that's going to look like for that person, for that family in their situation. So really, just as an encouragement, is like, if you don't really know what exactly you need, just reach out and have a chat. And I think Olivia said, is the most important thing is that I think that personal connection, because you are inviting someone into your postpartum space that is so personal and intimate. And you really want someone that you think you can connect on a personal level. So have that chat to get to know a doula. And of course, if there's something that is very important to you, then ask that question specifically. But reach out for support.
Yeah. Find the person, details can come later. And it evolves. No one knows what they're exactly going to need in the future. It evolves, and those details can be sorted out as you go. And I remember what I was going to ask you is that I know you've got a client you've been seeing for a year. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit more about, like, is it weekly for a year?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So what sort of things has her care sort of transitioned to as she's moved through?
Yeah. So we pretty much started with like the more traditional postpartum care. And then, but I love it because it really shows that, like we said before as well, like postpartum support can last as long as you want it to be. And I think the main reason for her as well is really to have that one day a week where she knows someone comes and looks after me, and like I give her a massage and I look after the household a little bit and after the now toddler. So she gets the time for herself. And then we have so many chats because you transition through so many things as a mother, especially in the first year, but really like all your life. So there's always something new that's like coming to like chat through. But I think that main thing is really to know you have that time set apart. And I mean, of course, like for some people that can mean to have a weekly postpartum doula coming for a year. That's not possible for everyone out of different reasons, but I think the most important thing is to have something every week to know that is the time for yourself. Someone else comes, that can be the partner or a family member, friend, can look after the baby. It's just like a time that you know is going to be for yourself, to take care of yourself so that you can then be the best version of yourself again, for your own sake, but also for your kids and your family's sake.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, thank you. So thank you all of you for sharing today. I'm going to be putting everybody's details in the show notes so that our audience knows how to get in touch, and I'm sure that they've taken away so many things from this conversation. But really, we just want to get that message out, don't we, that postpartum is forever, and that support is not just valuable, but it's necessary. It's a huge transition in our life. It's something that really does change us forever. And so having support is not selfish. It's necessary, yeah.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. If you are a pregnant woman or know someone who is, head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.